Good morning, AFCEA West. If you could please take your seats. Yes.
After, for questions, the microphone is back there, and they should form a line.
Yep.
Okay.
So on an administrative note, if you have questions, there's a microphone in the back, so please form a line for after the session. So my name is Timothy Hess. I am the ICAM technical lead. I work for John Basie, who's the program manager, and Major Latoya Hall, who's the deputy PM. So I am retired Navy, did 23 years in the Navy, and then upon retirement, I've spent the last decade working for DISA as identity SME. I did 7 years in the PKI team. I did a tech refresh of the existing DoD PKI. So if you have a CAC today, I built that. So normally they keep me squirreled away. So this is my first AFCEA briefing. Being the technical person, I'm the person they have in the closet answering the technical questions. So please bear with me as I proceed with the brief. Next slide. So what is ICAM? ICAM is having a set of tools, policies, and systems that the agency uses to enable the right individual access to the right resource at the right time for the right reason. We've done a really good job at updating the OV1. What you'll see is when I speak, I'm speaking as DoD Enterprise ICAM, so DoD EICAM. There are 6 other approved ICAMs for the DoD. There is the Army, the Air Force, the Navy, DLA, DHA, and DARPA. So those are the only approved ICAMs within the DoD space. So this diagram will show that you have the approved ICAMs. Pardon me. So you have the approved ICAMs here that will notionally feed into the Federation Hub. Oh, go back. So you have the approved ICAMs that will feed into the Federation Hub, but also you're going to have additional data and attributes for provisioning that's going to be fed for segregation of duty and the attributes into the back-end master user record. So what is DoD ICAM? DoD ICAM is made of 3 components. We have the IDP, the identity provider, and some of you might be familiar with IDSS or GFUD terms. So what we've done is consume those, which are DISA brandings, and made that part of the DoD EICAM IDP. Additionally, we have the AAP, so the automated account provisioning. What this does is we've automated the 2875, and we are consuming authoritative data to make the process a little bit more seamless. And in addition, we're doing additional logic. So there are annual recertification campaigns, as well as the segregation of duty rule sets. So we're taking the 2875, which used to be a PDF 2875, and improving it and enhancing it with automation. And lastly, we have the master user record. And the master user record is where we're doing the auditing. And in addition to the auditing piece, we're also doing we have an API interface, and that is the point where the application connects to you for pulling the provisioning data. Next slide. So DoD ICAM has come a long way. So you might remember at one point in time where username and password. We've since then improved to do the CAC. So around 1998, the DoD implemented the CAC. Since then, we've also moved to derived credentialing, which is derived credentials on your mobile device. And so now we are at the ICAM phase, where we're doing the AAP, IDP, and the master user record. So we're doing a lot of additional enhancements. Why are we doing this? We're doing this because it's a requirement for Zero Trust. ICAM is the user pillar for the Zero Trust, one of the 7 pillars in Zero Trust. And what's our way forward for 24 and beyond? We're going to be looking at federation, auditing, data standards and tagging, privileged access management, ABAC, and then non-phishable MFA. So these are additional capabilities that are on our roadmap that are requirements for not only the ICAM reference design, but for Zero Trust. So this is where industry has the opportunity to assist the DoD with providing input to data standards, attributes, data tagging, and some of the other efforts that are aligned to both Zero Trust and ICAM. Next slide. So what you see here is the ICAM capabilities roadmap. So what we've deployed today, we've onboarded 7 tenants with around 200 individual applications, and we're on NIPR and SIPR. We are developing our IL6 SIPR capabilities now, and we should have it operationally available for all 3 capabilities by the end of next fiscal year. Our IDP is operationalized right now, and we are onboarding applications starting this year for the IDP. Let's see. So going to our planned capabilities for this fiscal year, we are doing some efforts for data federation. The DoD's has numerous working groups to define the standards for data federation and our way forward for data federation. We are doing the pilot for the attribute-based access control. And then we are also working with DMDC for PIV integration. So what that is DMDC has a registration portal to allow ECA certs to register, and then that allows us to expand outside just the DoD CAC. For SIPR, we're looking at doing PAM, including YubiKey, and deploying our AAP MERC capabilities on IL6. And then we're also doing some efforts with the mission partner environment, specifically the SABRE team, to provide some proof of concept work for the Bold Quest exercise that's coming up this year. So additional things that we're looking for future capability for 25 and beyond is definitely the Federation Hub. That is going to be key. You saw that on the first slide, that it's going to be the gateway. That's all DoD is going to connect to that, and then our external partners, be it foreign or state, tribal, local, will be connecting to that. So that way, instead of us trying to mint new certificates for these people, we trust the identities that have been vetted by these other agencies. We're also looking at doing MFA. NSA is working on a MFA strategy, so once that's formally published, we'll have additional guidance to mature that in fiscal year 25 and beyond. Segregation of duties, similar thing, is having the standards that OUSDC registers for the financial management systems. So one thing I missed on the first slide, of those applications that we're onboarding both financial management systems and non-financial management systems. So we're encompassing the entire gambit of applications, both FM and non-FM. Also, as part of our requirements, we're looking at supporting state, tribal, local, and coalition. That's going to be much further down the road. With the timeline to support Zero Trust, we have to make sure that we're supporting the DoD first, but we are looking at increasing the scope to support the other communities as needed. So attributes are another aspect. We are consuming authoritative data from DMDC and from the service components, but as we expand the scope and role of ICAM to support both ICAM and Zero Trust, there's additional attributes that may be required. IA training certs to be one, supervisor would be another, to make sure that that is authoritatively being fed for the specific person and persona. And then there's additional access controls, both label, policy, and RDAC. So on CyberNet, similar thing. It's what we're trying to do is having a common deployment. We're deploying on IL4 first, and then deploying to IL6 secondary. So what you'll see, we'll deploy to IL4, and then you're going to see the same capabilities a year or two later on IL6. Next slide. So how to engage and onboard. So for the identity provider, there is a portal for onboarding. You go to that portal, take a look at the documentation, and then submit your onboarding request. The biggest thing that you might want to know, the differences between the component ICAMs and the DoD Enterprise ICAM is ours is appropriated. What does that mean for the DoD components? It's free. So the only cost that an application has on board to the Enterprise ICAM solution is making sure that your application is compliant with the ICAM standards that are being defined. And that's kind of a two-for right there, because ICAM is the foundation for Zero Trust User Pillar. So it means that if you do the work today to onboard to ICAM, you're onboarding to the Zero Trust ICAM pillar or user pillar. So there's a website on cyber.mil. It's CAC enabled, so if you have a CAC, you're going to be able to access the cyber.mil to ICAM. And then if you have any questions for the IDP, there's email for DISA ICAM PMO groups at mail. For AAP, it's the same website. You go to the onboarding portal. We do have some additional links for the API guide. We have a hub site that is, once again, CAC enabled. So, if you want additional information about ICAM, our schedule, our onboarding, we have tons of visuals and recordings. Reach out and we can provide you the hub site URL for the DoD CAC holders. In fact, that's the URL at the bottom. So if you have a DoD CAC, you can access it. There is a nuance with that. You need to have 365J tenant, either guest or normal access. So, next slide. All right, any questions? If you have questions, please go to the back of the microphone. Go back one side. Yes, sir.
Thanks. Can you hear?
Somebody else?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Cool. Hey, Timothy. Thanks for the talk. My name is Paul Puckett. A few questions for you if there's no one else to ask any questions. A number of the capabilities sound like they're extremely user-centric. For instance, your caveat there at the end, if you need a certain type of 365 access in order to do X, Y, or Z. What about non-person entities with machine-to-machine communications, service calls, service accounts, registering those and actually having then service-to-service communication for sharing of data around CJAD C2, predominantly not a user-driven process. How are you supporting that today or planning to support that in the future?
So if they are NPE certs that are issued by DoD Enterprise PKI, we do have those NPE certs available for management. There is additional work that needs to be done in the ICAM space that are future plans that currently NSA, PKI, PMO, and the Comply to Connect team are working on, but ultimately that will need to feed into ICAM so we can do that management for the non-person entity devices. That's a very interesting challenge that you've brought up, though, because you mentioned MPE, Mike Papa Echo, correct? Okay. Well, so NPEs exist. So there's a very unique challenge around the NPE. Most of the services have their own PKIs, and they're only locally trusted PKIs, which means that their certificates are only internal. So that holistic piece of NPEs is going to be an interesting challenge for the DoD, because you have so many other PKIs out there that are minting these device certs that we're going to have to know about. So that's kind of where the other service ICAMs come into, is they have their own they have their own PKIs, and so they're going to have to be able to feed us, and that's where that federation comes in. We're trying to get that back end communication so that the DISA DoD Enterprise ICAM is aware of what the Army certs are doing and is aware of what the Navy certs are doing. So that's definitely in work. Federation is hopefully going to help us with that, but it is a challenge. Another aspect of those challenges, is today we have so many multiple different environments. We have NIPR, SIPR, coalition, et cetera, et cetera. As we start looking at the zero trust aspects, we're really going to look at flattening a lot of these networks and opening it back up. So we need to make sure we have the technical maturity at our IDP level to make sure that we can provide the correct assertions that's able to traverse these various networks, if that makes sense. Next question.
Randy Marable with Delinea. Got a question with respect to the deployment of the DISA ICAM. Is it on cloud and is it on-prem and in the cloud? And if so, how is that going to be moving forward? What's the strategy there with respect to JWCC?
So our entire ICAM footprint is completely in the cloud. Our initial OTA pilot was done on-prem, but we pivoted, I believe, in 2021 into the cloud, and we had our MVP May of 2022. So we went operational in the cloud of May of 2022. And since then, we've, like I said, onboarded 7 tenants, 200 plus applications. Does that answer your question, sir? So one of the biggest nuances about our onboarding is we onboard the applications, and then the user community is per application. So that's how we are currently designed to onboard entities, NPEs, whatever it is per application. So that application comes in, they have their list of roles. We consume their existing roles, and then we consume their user base. So, does that better answer? Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about how you're approaching federal PIV authentication with the NIPRNet?
FedPIV, yes. So FedPIV, currently we are working with DMDC. There is a portal called the Mission Partner Registration, so MPR, that DMDC has operational. We hopefully will have that operational within the next quarter or two. They're already collecting the FedPIV identities, and then we have the mechanism to consume them. The biggest challenge that we have in the FedPIV space, the DoD is very structured. If you look at our CAC, there is a EDIPI plus 6, the FAPI. So we can tell that Tim Hess is Tim Hess retired civilian, or retired military, or Tim Hess civilian, or maybe Tim Hess contractor. We have that fidelity built into our certs. It's very structured. The challenge as we go into the FedPIV space is a lot of those standards are a little bit not consistent. So what we are trying to do is make sure we have the infrastructure to capture the FAPI, or the very unique identifier, so that we know that that FedPIV identity is who they say they are. Because part of ICAM is we have to make sure that we have the, following the NIST 800-63 standards, the AAL, the IAL, and the FAL. So that is key, that we make sure that we are capturing the appropriate identity data to specifically mark that you are who you are as you traverse our environments. Okay. Good question. Sorry, to further clarify, so that is, there are DoD applications who have users that are FedPIV, so Department of State, Department of Energy. So there's valid requirements that those federal identities need to log in. So that is where we are working with DMDC to enable the FedPIV personnel identities to register with MPR to then be consumed into ICAM for use for authentication and for authorization. Don't be shy.
Have you considered using commercial identity providers that have already achieved identity assurance level 2 in order to augment your ability to support multi-factor authentication and other services that predominantly on the unclassified side really have no necessity to go through kind of the formal DMDC structure when it comes to user onboarding and access? Like, think of all the, kind of the wellness, capabilities, renting basketballs, camping equipment, things that, that are currently happening on bases across all, the world that don't really need that level of scrutiny that typically comes from a very CAC-centric method for identity provision.
So that's actually a very good point. So you'll see our name is ICAM, Identity, Credential, and Access Management. What does it mean to industry? Well, it's IAM. If you go to Gartner, you're going to see IAM. The big differential between industry and the DoD is that CAC. And we have invested significantly over the past 2.5 decades for our CAC infrastructure. And we are continuing to do modernization on the CACs. So that credential is not a gateway or a blocker, but it's something that commercial products, like from our own personal lessons learned, some of our products doesn't do non-repudiation. They're not available or ready to integrate into the CAC. So when we do our digital workflows, they capture that non-repudiated action that Tim Hess asserts that, yes, this is my employee, and that, right? So there's some nuances about what industry can provide and what the DoD needs as it pertains to what our current infrastructure is tied to the CACs, if that makes sense, sir. And just to further elaborate on that, so our products that we currently have right now, we are COTS. So our IDPs, Microsoft, our IGA is SailPoint, and our MER is Radiant Logic. So we are using COTS, but once again, there has to been a lot of additional customization to meet the unique DoD-isms.
Copy on that, but I'd like to take it offline then, because I think there is an opportunity for things that, for instance, Tommy renting a basketball, non-repudiation, not really a concern, but something that is trackable to a person, right, tied to some affiliation, like those have some level of scrutiny. And also in the commercial world, non-repudiation has been met in a number of different ways. The main point being is the identity assurance level of a 3, which is typically the process. You got to walk into some deer space, put your finger on some stuff. I'm Paul. Here's all my life certificates. To then get a CAC. That level of scrutiny isn't needed for digital personas that everybody maintains online, which is how I'm paying my loans, any kind of access to the bank, all of my critical information around medical. Those are all been met with commercial IDP capabilities that do meet the NIST requirements that I think meets the level of entry for most of what we do on Unclass that we don't have to recreate as our own capability internal.
I definitely look forward to having that additional sidebar, but I agree with you. Unfortunately, we have to engineer to the kind of over-engineer to meet the, what we're engineering on IL4 today. Yeah, we can use that for issuing basketballs. But that same solution, we're trying to have commonality in our engineering, so that also has to scale up to IL6 of CIPRNet, so that way, it's protecting our classified information. So it's challenging to have that one-stop shop for vendor solutions. But look forward to the additional follow-on.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, Catherine Munoz, DMDC. Just a couple questions, mostly around what do you see as the biggest challenges in driving adoption of the enterprise ICAM services? And are there any areas that some of our partners in industry can lean in and help out address those challenges?
So yes, there's a lot of areas industry can help out. Federation, I think I've hit on that several times. The DoD is struggling with Federation. We think we have a handle on it, but once again, what I don't want to do is DoD continues to go down and does DoD things, and when industry's already figured it out. So that's where I'd like to have support from industry. Data standards, DoD is wonderful about data standards. So any products that, we have an entire generation of data out there. So, I wish I could Thanos snap data tags and data standards onto our existing data, but the reality, it doesn't exist. So that's definitely an area that industry could help with, is once we get the defined standards, what it is, and once again, having industry help us with defining what the minimal standards are for data tagging, for attributes, that would be beneficial. And then the tools that we can then take and tag said data.
Hi, good morning. Douglas Rapp, BMW 160. I have you touched on it just a moment ago. I'm curious if you have anything that you can say as to the implementation of enterprise ICAM on the higher security enclaves, for example, SIPRNet or even TSSCI networks.
So I can speak for DoD ICAM. So DISA is deploying, we are already deployed on IL4. We are deploying on IL6. Our IDP is available today. This year we are deploying our AAP MER products. There's additional MFA, ABAC, PAM things that are coming in the future. If you really want to see our timelines, go to our SharePoint site there. It has our roadmap out to, I believe, 2027. And so NIPR and SIPR is covered by DISA. That's what we are funded for. If you're looking at the JWICS piece, NSA has a solution there. Part of the work that I'm working with the Bold Quest team for the mission partner environment, as we start looking at Zero Trust, Zero Trust really is talking about collapsing the networks. So as we collapse the networks and make basically networks transparent, having the data tags, you can have these environments kind of commingle. So do we really need all this level community of interest, high assurance guards, firewalls to do these separations for coalition and SIPRNet and the various enclaves? Not sure if I answered your question, but that's kind of what I can speak to for what DISA can provide. And once again, there is no cost other than engineering your solution or your application to onboard to us, and just making sure that you're in alignment with the ICAM, which goes hand in hand with then you're now in alignment with the Zero Trust user pillar.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions? So once again, I will point out, if you haven't taken a picture, once again, it's DoD CAC enabled. So if you can go to the hub site, it has all the information. We have recordings for technical exchange meetings. We have our roadmaps. We have our recordings. There's a lot of data. We've invested a lot of time and cycles because it is becoming kind of like Groundhog's Day, answering the same question over and over. So we want to have full and open transparency. So please go to the ICAM hub site and take a look. And then we have monthly TEMS. Please join, ask your questions there, see what the latest and greatest is. We're always updating. So we are an agile program, incrementally delivering capability literally monthly. So if what we have today doesn't meet your needs, take a look at our roadmap and see maybe Q4 of 25, 24, we meet your needs, on board that. But one last plug, why ICAM? There is a DoD CIO memo that requires onboarding to an IDP, so us or one of the 6 approved, by September 2025, and to the AAP by December 2028. So you don't really have a choice. Pick one. All right, I think I'm at time.